Plenty of people dream of starting a web design agency, but few actually do. And I think one of the biggest barriers is complexity. Many people think that businesses are these big, complex things, and that starting a business is a really complex process. But it's actually a lot simpler than most people think. And I know because I've started a few businesses now. In this video, I'm going to share my super easy 5-step process to get your web design agency up and running. Hi, thanks for joining. If you're new to this channel, I'm Rich Dean, a web designer and developer, former web agency owner, and author of the book series Start, Grow and Sell Your Web Design Agency. My goal is to help anyone looking to start, grow and sell an agency to save time, earn more money, avoid the common mistakes and pitfalls, and build a thriving and valuable business. Okay, so on to the main topic, starting with number 1, decide how you're going to deliver websites. Okay, so this is a part that's probably the most obvious, but it's also the most important. Before you can even start a web design agency, you need to be able to actually deliver websites. Now, I'm going to assume that if you're watching this video, you at least have some knowledge of how to do this. But even if you don't panic. Stay with me, because the good news is that getting a website up and running has never been easier, and there are plenty of ways that you can do it. So even if you don't have any web design experience, you could still start a successful web design agency. What's more important is to realize that there's a scale when it comes to how big or complex or expensive websites are. At the higher end of this scale, you have websites that are very big and very complex and therefore very expensive. These tend to be delivered by very big, established technical agencies, and they also tend to cost a lot too. But then at the other end of this scale, you have websites that are very simple, easy to set up, and also very cheap, maybe even free. You'll just need to identify where you sit on this scale. When I started my web agency, I already had years of experience as a web designer and developer, so I was able to slot into somewhere in the middle of this scale. I wasn't able to deliver the really big, complex and expensive kinds of websites, but what I offered was still a premium service. But you don't need to have anywhere near that level of experience to get your web design agency off the ground. There are plenty of off-the-shelf website builder tools, themes and plugins, and even AI website builders where you just need to tell it what kind of website you need and it creates it for you. So whatever your level of experience, you should still be able to create the websites that you'll sell to your clients. Number 2, think of a name. This is definitely one of the more fun aspects of creating a web design agency, but every business needs a name. The good news is that this is something you can do in your spare time or even over a weekend. You could simply use your own name, like Joe Smith's Web Design Services, but that's also not the most exciting. So you could offer something more memorable. It doesn't need to describe what you do either. The trick is to create something catchy, something unique that will stand out to clients and show a bit of your personality too. If you're creative and you have the time, you could also start creating a logo and other brand assets. That will certainly help your new business look more professional, but here's the kicker: don't overthink it. A mistake that many people make is that they spend way too much time on the name and branding, trying to get everything absolutely perfect. In fact, they often spend so much time on this part when they should be going out and getting their business out there that they never actually get their business off the ground. They waste time going for this big, perfect launch, but they neglect the part that actually gets them work, which we'll talk about next. At this stage, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can always develop your brand and even change your business name later. Okay, before we go any further though, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We're a fairly new channel, so it will really help us if we can get those all-important likes and subscribes up. It won't cost you a thing, and it won't take you a second. Okay, back to the main topic. Number 3, find your first clients. So this is probably the area where most people get stuck, and it is a big one. In fact, I think if you ask most people who dream of starting a web design agency why they haven't done it yet, probably the most common answer is that they don't know how or where to find clients. But the good news is that this is something that's fairly easy to overcome too. First, you don't always need lots of clients. That's a misconception. In fact, you can have just one client and still have a business. If one person asks you to create a website for them and they pay you, then congratulations, you have a business. Now, finding clients can be a big topic, and definitely one that's too big for this video. In fact, I talk about this a lot in my second book, Grow. But the first thing to do is think about what clients you want to work with. This will also be tied to what kind of websites you're going to deliver, which we looked at in the first point. If you're going to create smaller, lower cost websites, then you'll probably need to find quite a few clients, in which case you'll need to get yourself out there quite a bit. So you may need to do things like go to lots of local in-person networking where you can meet clients face to face, List or advertise on online marketplaces like LinkedIn, Fiverr, or Upwork, so places where clients go to find freelancers or web agencies. Or create a strong online presence with your own website, content creation, social media, and maybe even some paid advertising. Some of those things can take a bit more time and effort, but you can go out and start networking almost immediately. Just find a local networking event and go to it. Or if your skills are more advanced and you're going to create higher end, more complex and more expensive websites, or you can develop or improve a client's existing website, then you may only need 1 or 2 clients to get started. The point is, finding clients is not as hard as many people think. There are plenty of people out there who need good web design services, so finding them shouldn't be a barrier to getting started. Number 4, create your work setup. As well as thinking about how you'll deliver websites, you'll also need a good setup to do this. This means investing in a good, capable computer, as well as having a dedicated space where you can work both productively and healthily. Now, many people think that you should have this in place before you start finding clients and projects, and that may be true. But I'd also argue that there's no point in spending lots of money buying new kits until you're absolutely sure you're going to use it. So personally, I would wait until you land your first client before you do this. Again, the good news is that it can all be done relatively easily. So if you land your first client, if you don't have this stuff in place yet, you don't need to panic. It can all be obtained relatively quickly. You don't need anything too fancy either, at least not to start with, and you can always upgrade later as your business grows. In fact, all the equipment you'll need can be purchased in a single weekend by going to places like your local PC or electronics shop for the computer stuff, and even somewhere like IKEA for your desk and chair. Or you can just order it online and get it delivered. In terms of where you work, if you can create a dedicated space at home, then that will make things even easier, and it will also save you some money. But it needs to be a proper workspace, not somewhere where you're cramped, uncomfortable, or where there's lots of noise or distractions. If you can't work from home, then a local shared office space can be a great alternative, and they're also usually pretty cheap too. Number 5, register your business. At some point, you'll need to register your new business with relevant tax authorities. Again, you don't need to do this straight away, especially if your business hasn't actually started trading yet. But as soon as you win those first clients and they start paying you, you'll almost certainly start owing tax. So you need to get this done as soon as you can. Again, this is another topic that can overwhelm people, and I'm not here to give you advice as to the best business structure, but do some research. There are usually many different ways that you can set up a business, but here in the UK, probably the 2 most popular are sole traders and limited companies. If you're a sole trader, it means you basically are your business. But a limited company is a separate legal entity, so it's not actually you. There are tax implications for both setups, so again, do some proper research. I'd also recommend speaking to a proper tax professional like an accountant, as they will be able to advise you as to which setup could be right for you, and they could even do all the setup for you. Again, this shouldn't be a blocker, and you can always change your setup later. So if you start as a sole trader, which is what I did, you can always shift to a limited company later, which is also what I did. Okay, so hopefully you found this video useful. If you've enjoyed it, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you'd like more tips and insights for how to get your agency off the ground, check out my book series Start, Grow and Sell Your Web Design Agency, which you can buy from Amazon now, and I'll share a link in the description below. And if you'd like to watch even more informative content, then why not check out this video here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.